Institutions, it is, whatever day it is. It is Thursday, February 6th. We are here by 1 o'clock. We have a whole crew from the Agency of Ag. We're only going to do the section that the part that pertains to the big, then and then we'll schedule you folks back in, for the Ag and A&R lab.
That would be me, but yes.
Because that will be a different discussion for that. So we're going to be talking about the building that we own, the Vermont building, down at the Big E, down in Massachusetts. There is an Avenue of the States down there. I don't know how many of the new people have been to the Big E, but there's an Avenue of the States, and all of the New England states have a building there, and that respective state owns the building. So we are responsible for operating it. We're responsible for the maintenance and the upgrades. So we're going to go through some of the history of this. There is a master plan for this. We've been putting money in over the past few years, and there's a request this year of 1.5 million. So whomever, I don't know if BGS starts or Agency of Ag.
I'd like to start.
Okay, Abby, why don't you come on up?
Right, so for the record, I'm Abby Willard. I'm the Director of the Ag Development Division at the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. And I think I'm joined by a few colleagues from the agency, both Nicole Dubuque and Amy Messier, and then our BGS counterparts and compatriots in management of the Big E, Joe Asia and Jessica Tyne. I do have a presentation that includes the history that Chair Emmons was referencing about the Big E, if that would be of interest. And
I think it would be helpful.
okay,
We do have the time.
great. So let me do that screen share here and see if it pops up. Look at that. Great. So our hope was that we could share a little bit about the program. Both Nicole and Amy can be helpful on some of the budget questions. And then, of course, Jessica and Joe, we have a variety of slides that pertain specifically to the budget and the funding and where BGS could be helpful. So we're hoping to kind of give you a little bit of a tag team today. So I just want to acknowledge that this is not a program that I run on a daily basis. My colleagues are an outstanding team that manage the Vermont building at the Big E, and for a variety of reasons aren't able to be here today. So you get me instead, but I'll do my best to kind of represent the outstanding work that team does on behalf of Vermont at the Vermont building in West Springfield, Massachusetts. But thanks for being willing to hear a little bit more about this event and about this building that we manage in an unusual circumstance, and that it's not in Vermont, but it has a lot of opportunity for representation of Vermont and our state. So let's see, this is a PDF. Let me see how I can advance the slides. Okay. I'm going to jump right in. So the Big E's been around for a long time. So it started in 1916. Sounds like some of you have been down to this special fair down in West Springfield, Massachusetts. The Vermont building, so it has a long history, very rich history. It's one of the largest fairs in the country. The Vermont building, as Chair Emmons mentioned, is on the Avenue of the States and was built in 1929. So we're rapidly approaching our 100-year anniversary of that building, and something that we're really planning for. And a lot of the improvements towards the building are really targeting that 1-year celebration. It's a beautiful building that we're excited to both celebrate and honor and see it into its next 100 years. As Chair Emmons mentioned, each New England state owns and operates a building. So we own the building and the land that the building sits on. And we use it as an opportunity of a public market to showcase Vermont businesses. We have somewhere close to 30 vendors in the building, every year for 17 days during the Biggie that when it operates. And it's a great opportunity to sort of introduce those that are visiting the Biggie to Vermont's products, our entrepreneurs, the businesses that we bring to the building, and a really special representation of our special state. So, just making sure each time you can see the full screen there. Okay. So this shows fifth largest fair in the United States. Over 1.5 million people visit the fair every year. Our estimation, though we don't have a door counter at the entrance to our building, is that about 94% of the folks that visit the Biggie actually go to the Avenue of the States and enter the Vermont building. So over 1.4 million people a year enter this building, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it's only open for 17 days. It has some summer construction dates, bless you, a few days to get set up and a few days for wrap up and move out. But to only have it be open for 2.5 weeks and have that much exposure of Vermont products and Vermont businesses is pretty spectacular. Let's see. We did a comparison. We've shared this in this committee previously. So those of you, some of you may have heard this already, but when we compare the attendance at the Biggie over the 17-day fair, it's 3 times the number of visitors that the Guilford Visitor Center receives throughout the whole year. So it's like a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to be exposed to Vermont.
Do you know where the folks that do attend come from? I'm assuming it all comes from New England, but
Yeah, so it's not from Vermont. So the attendees, 89% of attendees are from Massachusetts or Connecticut. So this market assessment was done a few years ago, and you can see about 1% come from Vermont. So that's the other unique opportunity of this event, is it's not about Vermont businesses reaching Vermonters. It's about Vermont businesses and Vermont products being available across the major metro area, and particularly to new customers in Massachusetts and Connecticut. When vendors talk about their experience at the Biggie, or when vendors talk to other entrepreneurs and businesses, people are always very envious of a business that chooses and is given the opportunity to vend at the Biggie, because they know that people are there to spend money, and they know that that exposes them to kind of new customers that they don't typically have access to in Vermont. You can also just see the location of the Biggie, and if you're familiar with West Springfield, sort of know that it's close to the interstate intersection of I-90 and I-91. So it's like a big major travel thoroughfare, easy to access, kind of is a quick zip down there. If you haven't been to the Biggie when it's in operation, it's worth the visit. But it also means that it is able to draw visitors and customers to the Biggie and to the Vermont building from New York City and from Albany and from other states across the Northeast as well. So only 35 minutes from Hartford. All right, so then here's the Avenue of the State. So on the western shore side of the Biggie is the Avenue of the States. And so each of the New England states owns and operates and manages a building there. Our goal is to fill it with vendors that represent the culture and the history and the diversity of product within our state. We are fortunate in that Vermont has so many spectacular, high quality entrepreneurs and businesses that our building is known to have the best vendors, the best vibe, the best experience. We have great music. There's a steady flow of customers throughout the 17 days that walk through the Vermont building, and is traditionally known as sort of the best building with the best food and the best product throughout the Biggie. We couldn't do the work that we do in the Vermont building without the support of BGS. So we have staff both from BGS and the Agency of Agriculture that are attentive and engaged in the Vermont building all year round. So it can be doing the renovations and major maintenance that typically happens when the fair is not in session. So, outside of that September window. And then always having staff on hand from BGS when the event is happening and when there are people in the building. We also have Vermont Department of Tourism and Marketing has a center booth in the building. So they do a lot of promotion and marketing of Vermont and Vacation Vermont, and then support from the Department of Labor as well. So it's a nice opportunity for collaboration across state agencies and departments. So there's the Coliseum in the center there, which is where a lot of the events occur, the agricultural events, et cetera. That was sort of one of the first buildings within the Avenue of the States, within the Big E, excuse me, and then the avenue over here on the western side. You can see kind of that crowd of people there, standing outside of the Avenue of the States, and that's what it looks like on beautiful sunny summer days. Beginning of autumn. So this is a PDF, so we can't, this is actually a video, but given that it's a PDF, it's not live, but this gives you a sense of the flow and the volume of people that are typically in the Vermont building. This is probably during Vermont Day, which is the busiest weekend of the fair for the Avenue of the States and for our building. So it's not like this all 17 days. Except for when the weather is spectacular, and then it's amazing how many hours of the day actually does look this busy. So the building's open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And there's a slide that we'll show in a moment of just sort of how customers come into the building and sort of flow through. So this is just one half of the building. So they kind of come in a side door, they walk down this aisle with vendors on both sides, they can get to the end and they turn around and they come back in equal space on the other side in the opposite direction.
It's a U shape.
It's a U shape, yes. And then one of the things that we've focused on in the last couple of years is really building out the outdoor space. So there's a back patio, there's an outdoor shed where there's vendors, and we've added food trucks to really maximize the number of vendors, which increases the customers and increases the sales and the commission that we receive on the building. So we'll go through some of those, but you get a sense of just on a busy day, the number of customer interactions that these vendors and businesses have.
I ask a question here. What do you have, and I'm assuming, I don't know if it'd be the Agency of Ag or if it's BGS, what do you have for security measures there coming in? Is there any requirements that the Big E asks for? Or do we do anything different?
That's a good question. We have had a variety of different security solutions at the building over the years. And then there's Big E security on the grounds. That's like very accessible. Like, so I would say often, well, every year have some sort of a medical situation in the building. Either it's hot, someone sort of overheats, someone has some sort of a medical episode. And so we are able to call kind of call Big E security, and they're there within minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything that you guys want to add from BGS side about the security? Okay.
In our building, when you're looking at this in terms of the space that people are moving in, is that equitable with the other buildings, or are the other buildings a little bit bigger for space, or is?
I don't know the square footage
I think it's about the
differences.
same as.
Yeah, Jessica may.
Just identify yourself for the record.
Yes. Jessica Time, I'm with BGS. I'm the project manager who's been working with Ag for 4 or 5 years. So the Vermont building is longer than the others, if you look at it.
It's longer going,
Yeah,
and not wider.
correct.
So is it about the same space that would be available? I think it, I mean, I've been down there.
You're remembering, there is one building that kind of has this wide
Would it be
layout, but
probably
there's
Massachusetts?
fairly regular. The
Square
buildings
footage.
are regular and in a loop and a T
Yeah.
cruciform plan. There's some irregularities that are wide.
Yeah. They don't get as many people either, I don't think. This one has a very different feel than some of the others. Some of the others have been more modernized, which really gives you a weird feeling. The one in New Hampshire looks like one of their rest areas, one of their, they don't even call them rest areas, where they had the liquor store and
Oh, yeah.
down around Manchester.
Pretty.
But that's their building, looks very similar to that. This one, and I think it's probably Maine a little bit, has more of a homey feel to it. I remember Rhode Island, I was kind of stunned to see that one. That's not like Rhode Island. And Massachusetts has the most opulent because that's where it's housed. I really don't remember Connecticut. But
Nobody does.
but this has a more homey and natural feel to it.
Yeah, and
It's different than the others.
I would agree. I think it does have a different energy and feel within the building. I mean, the idea is that the Avenue of the Estates really is like that you start at one end and you kind of weave your way down the avenue and through the buildings, and many people do that. So that the same number of people, may make it from end to end, but I think people do choose to spend time in the Vermont building, whereas they may make a quick pass through some of the other New England state buildings. And that's what it's about, is like, what does it feel like? What does it smell like? What can you see? What kind of energy is in the building? And that's certainly been a priority of our team's management, priority over the past couple of years, is to really focus on that experience, both for the fair goer to be able to come in and have a great experience, but also for the vendor to feel like it's enjoyable space to spend the number of hours that they do over those 2 to 3 weeks in
And
September.
that's where some of our money is gonna go, is to help the vendors.
Did you already, you asked about the size and stuff, but did we get a square footage? I mean, you probably already know this.
No, I don't know if it's.
I don't know the square footage, but that might be something that BGS knows.
It's not urgent, I didn't, but,
12,000 square.
oh, it's not very big.
That's the whole building. Does that include the spaces upstairs too, or just the
I
downstairs?
think that's the footprint.
The footprint is about that.
Yeah, so all the vendors are on this ground floor. You can kind of see, there is a second floor. There's two, I don't have the best language, but there's two parts of the second floor. One is a dry storage area, and then on the other end is where we have a small office for staff. It's where there's two non-ADA accessible restrooms and a kitchenette that's sort of required to be offered for vendors and for staff to be able to access water and a stove and be able to, sit and have meals or prepare food.
So for the restrooms that are upstairs,
Yeah.
non-ADA is more than just the space in the restroom. It's how you get there. There's no elevator.
There is no elevator in the building. Yeah, and we'll show you, there is an image here that we can show of kind of what access to the restrooms currently looks like in the building.
Yeah, that's great. That's building up what they need to do.
If we keep moving on. Okay, so this is the list of the 27 vendors that were in the building, the Vermont building last year in 2024. And you can see there's a wide array of businesses here. Some of these vendors have been in the building for years. Some are brand new to the building. Others may have started. I always think of Ardent Flame Candles as one of my examples. So they started and they joined us for Harvard New England Day, where they were on the Big E lawn just for one Saturday. And they were sort of like testing it out, seeing how it felt to be at the Big E and if they felt like it was the right customer base or they had the right product. Then they applied and they were in the building for 3 or 4 days. And again, that was just to sort of like test it out, see if they could hack the long days and if they could get the labor and the product down to West Springfield to make it worth their while. And it did, and it was successful. And then they returned in 2024 as a full-time vendor. And they were super excited. They said this was great. Some of our best sales, really good market for, I think they make like a soy-based candle with essential oils. And they had great sales and they were happy to come back again if they had the opportunity. So again, you can see the big more established vendors that have been there a long time, and then some of the new businesses as well.
So are you gonna get into the different type of vendors that are coming in now compared to what has been there traditionally and how that's impacting some of the updates that are gonna be needed?
I think to some degree, I'm happy to cover that, and able to cover that. So let's see here. Let's use this schematic just for this conversation. So this shows the building. Most visitors to the building come in that upper right-hand corner by 802 Clothing. They come by the Cheese, Village Peddler, Sugar Makers, come by Ben and Jerry's, and then go back up by Green Mountain Concessions up and all the way to the apiary and then where booth 19 is and out that door.
They also come in the main door too.
They can also come in the back. So this is something that has evolved and changed over time for this building, is to be able to have more utilization of the outdoor space. So not only is this the building, but there's also a footprint of land that this building sits upon. And behind, and this schematic doesn't show it justice or appropriately, but behind Ben and Jerry's, out of the building, is an outdoor space where we now have an outdoor shed that has a couple of vendors, and we've been able to bring in a few food trucks, and we have bear carving and a few other vendors outside, which has been one of the improvements that we've done to be able to both bring in more vendors and increase sales.
You think you have capacity for a number of vendors?
We've been creative with the space, the way that it's set up, like last year or 2 years ago, we actually have turned a closet into now vendor space. Part of the modernization and kind of renovation is to actually be more economical with the space and possibly carve out a few more ideas for adding vendors. So 27 was the number of vendors that we had in the building in
Including
24,
around.
including inside and outside, yes. Yeah, so I think that's something that our team is always thinking about, is like, how do we utilize the space both for the best experience for the customer and for the vendor, but also the more vendors that we can have that have a good experience and have good sales results in, income for management and operation of the building on our end as well. So I think there are some ideas that have come up, and maybe even Jessica, when she talks about kind of the layout of the building, can share some suggestions also.
Yeah, what's like, so the competitive bid process, what sort of that criteria look like, is it a mix? Because I can see like Ben and Jerry's is kind of a draw as far as branding to bring people in. Do you try to mix it with like bigger ones and smaller ones? Or?
Yeah, so we do a competitive request for proposal. So it's currently open now. It closes on March 2nd. And businesses have to apply. And then we have our program team that reviews the applications that come in. And the goal is to have a mixture of, businesses that are agricultural, businesses that bring in other kind of like gift products. So there's jewelry, there's other food items, having prepared food. We have some limitations provided by the Big E around alcohol vendors, so we can have only limited alcohol vending in the building. And the review team is very conscientious of not wanting to have, 3 different cheese booths or 4 different clothing vendors in the building. So really trying to both protect the vendors that are already there and have been there via a multi-year contract with the new interested vendors. Sometimes we receive a very competitive application, but it's not the right fit for the building. Like, we just don't feel that that's the right product or marketing for the clientele that comes through the building. And so we have those conversations with applicants to say, appreciate your application, just doesn't feel like the right fit. So the team takes, great care and consideration when deciding and offering, like what businesses have the opportunity to be in the building. Sometimes there's a few booths that are designed to be like rotating booths. So recognizing that if your business isn't scaled properly, or we're not sure, or the vendors and the business isn't sure, they can come in and just be there for a period of a few days. So try it for 3 or 4 days and then have that be a rotating booth where another vendor comes in for another 4 days, so that they're not making the 17-day commitment. Because the 17 days is a big commitment. They have to figure out, all the logistics of getting product from their home down to West Springfield. We do provide dry and freezer storage for product and cold refrigerated storage. There's a lot of labor costs to be able to have the booths staffed the entire time from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. They have to pay for lodging, so they have to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb, or some people have other creative options that they utilize to be able to have themselves and the labor that they need down there for the duration. Many businesses can't take down the full inventory that they'll sell over the 17 days. So they have to go back and forth, whether for raw ingredients, if it's a prepared food vendor, or, more inventory if it's, other vendors. So it has to be the right fit of the business, the product, and kind of like their stage of development to be successful there.
One of our colleagues goes down there, Mike Nigro.
Yeah, he's, Green Mountain Concessions, right?
Right. Yeah.
Matt Walker is also down there.
Is
He's
Matt
been there
down
for
there with
years.
what?
Vermont Clothing Company.
802.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
so we hear all these stories, as you guys
Okay.
do, about how taxing it actually is, but also how many people come through. And how, what a percentage of a yearly business can be made in 17 days. But you do have to work for it.
You're
Like,
working
like,
hard.
you know, you live sometimes in a car or partially, or you're sleeping in somebody's house that you've met for a friend, or you're finding other ways, but like our associates said, like if you pay for a hotel, you're losing all your profits.
Right.
You know, so it is not as easy as people like, the people who go there are putting something into it. They're not just getting something for free.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And we take that into consideration as we've developed the commission rate, which is the compensation to the state that the vendors that have had the opportunity and the privilege to be in the building provide back. And the commission rate has evolved over time. So it was 12% for quite a few years. We increased it recently to 13.5%. And going into 2025, all vendors will be at 15%. And we've contemplated, like, could we go to 20? Could we go higher? You know, again, if the goal is to, just raise revenue on behalf of the management and operation of the building. And we take into consideration, like, what can the businesses bear? Like, what's a reasonable commission rate for them to pay, given the other expenses that they're also responsible for?
Is there a flat as well, it's strictly commission based?
Just commission for our building. Other buildings on the Avenue of the State do things differently, but that's how we have elected to do it.
So I was gonna say, is it the same commission for everybody? In other words, like, so there is a company at the end of the thing, not, you know, they're huge. They can probably weather 20%,
Yeah.
but a small mom and pop Vermont artisan. Right, so,
We have done a across the board rate. We did do some difference of rates depending on if you had an established multi-year contract in the last couple of years, and we've been increasing the rates, but everyone is paying the same 15% going into 2025. We've contemplated kind of having a nonprofit rate versus a for-profit business rate, or different size businesses. And at this point, kind of we've talked about it with vendors. You know, we've had those conversations. And I think the team is still feeling like an across the board 15% is at least what we're willing to try and give a shot for the next couple of weeks.
Did Joe just ask, do you charge for the booth?
We do
That
not.
is-
No booth charge.
That is the
Right.
charge,
Well, that's.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah,
you
we
have
don't
other trade
charge for
shows,
square footage. Yeah,
Trade shows, people spend a lot of money for it.
yeah. So
$100 for a booth like that for regular trade shows. So
exactly.
it's a good
Yes,
deal.
it is. Yeah, for many, I think that's how they feel. In the actual booth, so we provide hoods and sinks. We provide water and power. And they provide like any special equipment that they need in their booth. And then we have a series of construction days where they can come in and do some, like, minor aesthetic retrofitting to the space to make it their own. So those are their contributions to the space. It's a average of an average, but if we take the average, say, at daily sales across all the businesses in 2024 and then average that, the average daily sales were $4,700. And so it's not a median. So there's some that are much smaller than that, and there are many that are much higher than that. But like that just gives you a sense of the average daily sales per vendor on an average day at the Big E. Okay, so this slide just sort of gives you a sense, and we've talked about these mostly already, but just sort of the objectives that we have as goals around the Vermont building. So again, we want businesses to be successful. So when we receive those requests for proposal responses, we're very thoughtful about identifying who's a good fit in the building and what the composition of other vendors and personalities in the building are, so that those businesses can be successful. We're using this as an opportunity to represent Vermont and sort of the Vermont brand, and really even looking at Vermont as a destination for people to come. The event happens in September, so it's just at the beginning of our foliage season when we start to see so many more tourists kind of coming north to our state. And this is a great event to sort of like kickstart that time of year for Vermont tourism industry. We also want the fairgoers to come through our building and have a good experience. So they're the ones that are spending the money. And we want them to come into the building and have a good sense of Vermont, get a sneak peek of what it looks like and feels like to be be in our Green Mountain State and to be able to have a good experience, navigating through the building, both like physically and with the variety of product and food that they are exposed to. And that includes having a diversity of product and business types in the building. And then lastly, we have, business management target goals that we want to reach so that we're ensuring that the the management and operation of the building can be sustainable. All right, so then this is one of the improvements that we made in the recent years, which was like better utilization of that out back of the building. So you can see there's a couple of food trucks, so chicken and waffle bowl and broccoli bar. There's that green awning over on the right-hand side of the screen, which is the shed that has a few vendors in there. And for years, you wouldn't see this kind of a crowd out behind our building. It was quiet, it was underutilized, it wasn't the most vibrant and kind of utilized space. And this has been something that has both resulted in a growth in our sales and in the number of vendors that we've been able to fit in the space, and customers have really responded to it. You'll see people out there. There's little tables for people to sit at. Broccoli Bar provides music, and it's a really kind of fun space to spend, your mealtime, either that's lunchtime or into the evening. So this slide is of Biggie sales by year. So you can see that historically 2019 had been our all-time high sale. In 2020, the fair didn't happen because of COVID. In 2021, sales were down because attendance was low, and we didn't have the building wasn't full. We didn't have the commitment from all vendors to feel that they could confidently attend the fair and have it be worth their while. In 2022 is when we started to make some of those changes around adding more vendors and utilization of the outback space. And we saw sales start to return. And then in 23, we had $2 million in sales, and that had been our highest until last year, which was our highest ever at just over 2.2 million.
So that number in the commission numbers you spoke of would suggest net revenue is a high $200,000, $300,000. Where does that go?
Yeah, so again, just my only caution would be that the 15% has not been the commission rate that we've had historically. It's been 12 or then 13.5. So 2025 will be the first time that we have 15% commission rates. But whatever that generated commission rate goes towards is the management operation of the building. So we use that to pay for, I did just sort of make a list of some of the budget costs. So it pays for staff throughout the year. It pays for our fee for space. We pay for costs related to operation of the building during when it's operational. So we have cleaning contract, we have music that's provided. There's other, landscaping that happens on the property, pays for the electricity and the internet.
Okay. So are you operationally whole in that regard based on the commission's?
We are, yes. Yeah, and I would say, I think our shared vision between BGS and the Agency of Agriculture is that we can imagine a time in which the income generated from commissions could cover all the operating and maintenance requirements of the building. The challenge has been the deferred maintenance over so many years. We're not there yet. So we still have a series of deferred maintenance that's needed on this building before we can get to that stage where what vendors provide and commissions can cover all of our annual costs.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so then moving along, so this includes sales and attendance, where you can see that in 2023 was the first year that our sales diverged from reliance upon the number of attendees at the Big E. And again, I think that speaks to the high quality vendors and products that are available in the Vermont building, that our sales continue to grow in the Vermont building, which is a very exciting trend to see. That's one. Sure, I can go back.
I guess it's not that important. I was just curious why 2023 went down for attendance, but
It rained
Uh,
for like
Oh, yeah, that was.
15 out of the 17 days or something terrible. Like, I can't remember. I wasn't there for the whole 17 days, but it was a rugged
Yep, good enough answer.
summer, yeah, fall.
Thanks.
Yeah. It rained. And that is, that's part of the vulnerability of an event like this. It's like an outdoor event. So people come to eat and to, socialize and, mingle. Yeah. And that's not as easily done when it's terrible weather. But in 2024, it was beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to be quick because I know that what you really want to talk about are the budget pieces. And so hopefully that history and like a little bit of background about the event and about the building was a helpful context. These are some of the challenges that we face in the building, and it has been kind of the focused attention of the last few years of deferred maintenance with BGS, is kind of looking at the electrical capacity limitations within the building. We've had leaks both from the roof, which is a slate roof, from a skylight. And though it was repaired last year, we had, multiple years of an upstairs bathroom actually leaking into a vendor's booth. The ADA accessibility we talked about, and I'll show the photo next year of having our kitchenette on the second floor as well as our two single stall restrooms. So we have an older vendor who actually has to go to another building to access the restroom because he can't climb up the, 2 flights of stairs to get to our bathrooms. And then again, I'll show in a few photos just some of the visible decline that exists. So there's rot and there's chipping paint and there's brickwork and improvements that are needed. It's an old building that we've invested a good amount of attention to in the last couple of years. But again, that deferred maintenance over many decades is starting to really show. And then the aesthetics piece is that it's hard to see in those views of the interior of the building with all the customers, but there's a lot of incongruity between the booths. There's not like a theme that kind of flows throughout the building. There's a lot of kind of hodgepodge put together booth spaces that we've had to do over the years. So there are some, both flow and aesthetic areas for improvement within the building as well. So here's that bathroom photo that I promised, and you can sort of see there's 2 flights of stairs over on the side here, and then 2 steps up into the stall. There's an identical bathroom to this at the other end of this little catwalk on the second floor. Here's just an example of some of the trim and kind of disrepair of the windows. This is, again, many of you have seen this photo before from our presentation. So this is just a water stain from a skylight that's leaking. This is a dry storage area that's also on the second floor of the building. And so, repair to that skylight and to the roof have been priority maintenance concerns for us. And then here's just an example of some of the trim dry rot on the exterior of the building that's sort of just showing its age. I think we've talked mainly about these kind of objectives, which is to really bring the building into code, ensure that we're addressing structural and safety needs and the major maintenance concerns within this building. And that's been the focused intention of some larger capital bill requests in the recent time, which was in response to an overarching renovation design and plan that was created, that was funded in fiscal year 23. Yeah, was to like kind of do a major vision of like what's needed in this building, what's it going to cost, the general estimate, and Jessica can correct me for accuracy, but it was depending upon the direction and the kind of the version we wanted to go with, it's somewhere between like 8.5 million and 12 million was what was needed in kind of overarching deferred maintenance and renovation to kind of bring the building to the vision that we had for it.
So I have a question about bringing the building up to code.
Yeah.
Is that Massachusetts code or Vermont code?
We've presented in prior years, and this continues to be the case.
That's why I asked the
that,
question.
We have committed in doing one of our last repairs to fixing all plumbing to follow Massachusetts code, which means no PVC. And in prior years, this has been managed as though it's a, as though we follow Vermont code in Massachusetts, but we've now had discussions with the fire chief and legal letters, and we have agreed that yes, they are serving our building safety wise, and we will comply with their code from here on out. So every time I do an RFP, the engineers are incredibly confused by this, but yes, we're bringing a building into a new state.
So when you go out for an RFP for the work being done at the building, is it Vermont contractors that are doing the work, or is it Massachusetts contractors, or both?
We always talk to our Vermont contractors, and I've had some do favors down there on urgent matters, but they do not. We're not seeing people who want to go down there. We have an electrician who will go down there. But plumbing, no.
Is it-
General contractors.
Is it the cost of going down, or is it the codes?
They have been busy. Right? So, and
Yeah.
if they were having bad times.
Yeah, they will go.
For the record, Joe Edger, Director for Building and General Services. With, Director of Design and Construction. for Building and General Services. Part of that reason is for our Vermont contractors to go down there. If you work a business along the border, you may have a license in Massachusetts. So part of that problem is following the code, you have to be licensed in Massachusetts to work in there. Some of our contractors are larger contractors. But again, as Jessica was saying, some are, it's a busy season for them for the past several years with COVID and all that. And it's just, they're not, dollar wise, it's not worth it for them to go down there and do that.
So if we. I have two questions here. Are the codes stricter down there than what we have for Vermont?
I believe they are, yes.
So that adds cost to the work. And the contractors that you're gonna have, you'll be using contractors probably from Massachusetts or maybe Connecticut. Are their prices higher than what we would pay Vermont contractors?
Yeah, they're union down there, so, as well as having additional administrative things in their code.
Does our prevailing wage kick in on that?
It does, but it won't touch it.
It doesn't touch
Right,
it?
it won't.
Okay, okay. Okay, because for projects that are funded through the capital bill, we pay prevailing wage for that here, the Vermont prevailing. So,
So they're not concerned of. it's
okay,
not an
because you're
cost
paying,
add
yeah.
Because their regular costs would be.
So for any project that we're doing down there to bring this building back up to what it should be.
Yeah.
We are dealing with stricter code requirements for the building. And it's a struggle probably to get some contractors to do this. Very likely you won't get Vermont contractors, so you have to get contractors from out of state. So it's a higher cost.
I was gonna ask, we're probably not there yet, so, about how long it would take to do all the repairs.
Or working up.
We're not there yet,
We're
right?
not there yet.
I think, I'm happy to make this transition to BGS, but I think kind of our vision, and I'll just speak generally, was that the goal was to be able to have all these renovations and significant maintenance completed prior to the 100-year celebration in 2029. And so I think into fiscal year 29, and then at that point would be the end of these major kind of catch up on deferred maintenance costs.
So it's around 13 million. Right?
This is your slide, Jessica. Do you want to?
17,100.
Yes, turns out that's not.
You know, one thing I want to point out to the committee, thank you for putting together this chart. Because for every project that was in our capital bill and every summary paragraph for what was being requested, we had a chart like this in terms of what had been approved previously through FY24, what the current year they're getting in 25, and what is proposed in our capital budget for FY26 and 27, and then what the future requirements were. And then we also had broken down on the big left-hand column, where in the process they were for the project. Was it schematic design? Was it site acquisition? Was it going out to bid? And was it construction? We don't get that anymore, which is really hard for us to see the cash, to see the flow of dollars for a project and what's going to be done in what particular year.
This is absolutely compliments to BGS. This is
Yeah.
this is the beginning of their details and
Thank you.
areas of expertise.
This is really helpful. So I want to thank you for that. So it's time to switch gears.
Yes, do you want me to still sit here or do you guys want to move up here? Okay,
It's not that bad being in the hot seat.
so I'm gonna leave this, you need this, Jess, to be able to advance the slide.
Shall I introduce myself again?
Yes.
Jessica Time. I'm a Buildings and General Services Project Manager and Architect. And I think what I started with before is we have been looking at this building since 2021. Because I came on and they've got leaks, they've got deferred maintenance everywhere. And the efficiency of doing any small project that we attempt is really, really hard because we also don't have pre-contracted Vermont contractors who will work on this. So it's all unique contracts and a full 6-month bid project for minute or large at this location. So as mentioned, it's deferred maintenance and rehabilitation of the building. We are focusing on code, reducing inefficient, this is wrong side. We've been funded for phase 1 of this, and we're starting construction this season. It'll be complete by fall. And that's the phase 1 exterior restoration. So you're seeing on the side of this slide that those are the construction documents. They'll be out to bid shortly, and I'll have really good numbers back, I hope. So we're trying to be really efficient with what money we are getting, not knowing how it will continue. So
if I can stop you there, Minnie, between FY 24 and 25, they have 2.24 million for this project.
Yeah.
You can see that.
And of that, that's fully encumbered. I have a contractor, I have an architectural team. And we're not in construction yet because it's not construction season, but the only money that I have remaining is for design of phase 2. So phase 2 is mostly FY 26 and 27 funds.
So how much do you have left to put towards the design?
Around 300,000. So you see here at the bottom, FY 26 and FY 27 are each 1.5 million for a total of 3 million. And
that will get us through phase 2.
phase 2 and phase 3. So phase 2 is, we're hoping, right? Phase 2 is mechanical and electrical deferred maintenance. And it will start in that fiscal year 26 and be completed in fiscal year 26 as well.
That's the common question.
No, there's no dumb question. No.
Doesn't Vermont have a budget line item for marketing? I mean, we're selling Vermont on a regular basis in many ways. This is marketing as far as I'm concerned.
Building.
I understand, but if this is selling Vermont. I'm just wondering why we can't somehow find the money to do that.
We own the building, and that's what the capital budget is to take care
I hear you.
of Vermont-owned buildings, not the operations within the building. the tourist industry takes care of the operations within the building. We take care of the buildings.
Well, ag
Left
takes
side.
care of the operations in the building. We have
Right.
promotion of agriculture and Vermont businesses through the tourism and marketing.
It's general fund dollars at times.
The staff time from tourism and marketing is general fund as well as, some of the Agency of Agriculture time, but also some of that Agency of Agriculture time is paid for by the commission, kind of that operating budget that we have. It is somewhere around $250,000 a year.
Upset, thanks.
So in previous years, we had lots of photos of how bad the exterior is. We're not going to show this to you. Hopefully soon I'll be showing you the work getting fixed, right? And so with the prior allocations, we've done planning in 2023 and we've done all the design and we're ready to go on this phase one, which included,
And that's gonna be this summer.
yes, that includes everything that needs to be done on the exterior, especially things that are prone to allowing water in the building. We've had flashings fail, we've had roof leaks and failure, we've had the cupola leaking and failing. So these all get repaired and a lot of wood on the exterior, though there isn't a lot of wood, you're looking at some of the prominent and very detailed wood where there's going to be rot and significant work to scrape and paint that.
Is that lead paint? Gonna be lead paint.
Yeah. So we get into that.
Is there stricter requirements to take care of lead paint in Massachusetts than else? Or is it about equivalent?
It's slightly not for lead paint.
That's
Their PCB handling is slightly different. Which is PCBs are another hazardous waste that there's a potential we have on this building.
Is there asbestos in the building?
We've tested everything. There's asbestos in the roofing cements. So we'll have a little bit of cleanup there. So we have trifecta of hazardous waste in an older building. That's not uncommon. So getting into the fiscal year 27 request, phase 2 is looking at ongoing, this is an ongoing issue. In past years, we've had fires on our in electrical panels. And we were able to do repairs that replaced 3 panels and redistributed some of the power in the building. Our issue, things are getting better, but we still have at least 15 more panels that are antiquated and full. So there's no spares on these. And in a building that has a lot of change, whenever you have change, you need a spare. And these guys encounter change all the time. Like somebody wants to bring 6 crock pots instead of 3, and they don't notify you. And, this stuff is always handled at the very last minute, right before the event goes off. So we're also in that same position with our main distribution panel. It has no spare slots and it's even been tapped. There's only one of these kind of illegal, or there's one legal tap that can happen to get more capacity, and we've already touched that. So we keep encountering electrical capacity issues, and that's one of the things limiting how many booths they can have and how much variety they can have.
Because isn't part of the plan also to put electricity in more of the booths as well?
Right.
Some of the vendors need that and there isn't the ability because there's no outlet there.
Right.
And some of the vendors, if they have anything that's frozen or needs refrigeration and the breaker's tripped, then the power goes out and then we get issues and they're always running around trying to take care of that. So this is work that would be done in FY 26.
Yes.
27. with the 3 million.
This is just FY twenty-six. We broke the two out into separate.
So
Phases.
phase 2, is that just for FY 26 or is that also FY 26, 27?
Phase 2 is FY twenty-six.
Okay. And that's 1.5 million that would get you what is prioritized there.
So we hope to stretch it further. These are the baseline. We must do this. Obviously, what I'm representing is that we do want, as we replace these panels, this is one example in the photo of a panel that they don't make those slot style panels anymore. So it has an implication on the layout in the space. And this one is not accessible for somebody to work on. There's ones that are buried in the building. So it has renovation. We have to renovate as we do this. And we will also be doing code for plumbing and things like that. So every project we've done in the past to make code improvements, we're jacking up the slab because the waste lines are inadequate. And the ones that we have not done yet are the next to be done.
So you have 300,000 that's left from previous appropriations. From the previous that you said, and you're going to apply that to phase 2, which will be in addition to the 1.5 million that you're requesting.
Yeah. Phase 3, so fiscal year 27, we would be planning on phase 3 and also following a similar schedule. We only have a short construction window, so we have to hit every deadline for these. We would be doing, again, this is the priority list. If the money can extend further, we will take it further because of the need. And we already talked about the need for accessible kitchens and restrooms on the first floor to serve the vendors. And then getting into building system issues like deferred maintenance on flooring, which is becoming a safety issue as well as a visual issue. Actually, several of these slides you see where we've jacked up the slab and patched it and various things that's right through where people walk. So it's a patched condition. We're also looking at updates to food service. Some of the hoods, for example, don't meet code for the variety of vendors that come in. And then updating the visitor and vendor experience. So you're looking at one view where this is the main foyer of the space. And you're seeing that there's some glamorous finishes, there's some dated finishes. There's many things in this building, and I'll go back because this slide shows the floor patch cutting through here. And this mezzanine that's not being used. So, and you saw the picture from above, it never even got finished. It's hardly being used and it's not finished and it's fairly unsafe.
So the 1.5 in 27 is going towards the building rehab. Part of it, a kitchen, restroom, ADA, that type of thing, that what you just showed.
Yeah. So the 1.7, so I'm going to consider the 300,000 remaining design money for both phases. So I want if we have
The
your
design
blessing.
dollars for both phase 3 and phase 2 and 3.
Yeah. And then each one of these would be the 1.5.
Right. So then I'm looking in the out years, you still haven't met your 13 million per se. What other work would you do after phase 3?
I think if you look at the slide, we're showing the broader plan on the top. There's a plan of what's existing, and we have 18
Oh,
booths.
for the booths. Okay.
Yeah, and what's happening is as we bring the bathrooms down and in the bottom, we're showing where the plan is to bring the bathrooms into these corners at the entrance and at the exit.
So if you do that, are those bathrooms now going to be available for the public?
No, we can.
I know.
Yeah.
But if they're right there by the entrance.
Right. I think there's some development to get the door off of the main entrance. It may eat more square footage. Yeah, and then a kitchenette that is right here that would serve as, right now there's a larger break area. Bringing it onto the first floor where space is a premium. We're consolidating it.
Increasing the footprint.
Yes, we're working within the existing footprint. So what that does is it takes away vendors. And what we were working on was taking all of these issues that we're looking at and creating a holistic plan where we can increase the variety of vendors. This would get on the bottom, this is the master plan. This would get us 30 vendors and 29 vendor stalls in the building. And where you've been hearing 27 to 30 vendors in the building, that's not that many booths because some of the booths are shared. Within the building, we only have 18 currently. And some of them, it also addresses this booth. I'm going to pick on one booth as an example. That's one booth. And that's partly because of the electrical. So, when we actually go to what would be an appropriate sized booth, we can get more out of this building.
You want to go from 18 booths up to 30,
29.
29, yeah.
And-
some outside stuff.
And you can see that in the original plans, there's necking in certain points in the building that causes a lot of congestion. And there's also queuing that happens at these locations. There's queuing issues that happen at this point. And what that means is the neighboring booth that is selling wine, for instance, might not get as many visitors because everybody's just trying to get through that funnel and they don't want to get stuck further. So, in an organized plan, we would have key vendor booths at the corners where there's a little bit more relief for those lines.
All right.
So the work that you just laid out, you're talking 2027, like the bathrooms coming down for the vendors and those types of pieces?
So I'll break it up. Mechanical and maintenance in 26.
Right, that I got.
And then the restrooms
Right.
and interior work in
Well,
the following year.
one of my constituents will be extremely happy. He's the gentleman you referred to who has cancer and it's been a real struggle.
He's right on the corner booth on this place.
Is it this one?
Yes.
He will be most appreciative
Well,
of it.
I think we have a hard time deciding which one, right? There's really no
I know.
which one goes first. But
They love the Biggie and what they do there and we're lucky in Bennington because we have two people from the area that are vendors there. It's just amazing.
maybe this booth too.
So on phase 3 in FY 27 is when you're going to bring down the restrooms and the kitchenette. and put it in that corner. And then the out years, then you're gonna work on the booths. And you're gonna bring electricity to each one of those booths. And that would be work that will be done in phase 2 as well, right?
The phase 2 portion is the main service coming in the big panel.
Okay, so the main service coming in.
Transformer has to be upgraded. There's a lot of the exterior work to get to the main panel. And then how much electrical work? You know, if each booth gets a panel for its booth, that will come later. But the booths that don't presently comply could be updated now. It's a planning thing.
And you want to have the dollars go as far as you can. So if you had a little extra dollars and you're already in the electrical, then you might put in electrical in the booths,
That works out
Possibly.
that way, yes.
possibly. Then you have to know where the booths are gonna go
Right.
first. So it's a chicken and egg situation.
Some of that, yes, but some of the, you know, running the electrical main for that. Put in some of the distribution can work.
Mhm.
We have to get the planning done, design done first.
You think they're gonna have trouble getting contractors down there? I mean, they're just as busy, right? And supplies?
I've been successful.
Events,
It's been a joy compared to fitting work in Vermont.
There are several times more people in a 20-mile radius there than there's in the entire state.
What about the supply chain? Have you had any issues with that?
Well, for electrical, we will, yeah. So,
I'll go as planned. Possibly.
but if we have both of them designed, we can bid things as alternates. Yes. That would be. That's why we're seeking to get the design done.
Questions? John?
How much power comes in there? How many amps are coming into the building now?
I don't know that off the top of my head. That's good. Yeah.
It's a 400 amp.
So you're trying to go up to 6 or
Um,
something?
I'm saying 400 amp. I think it's restricted to 300 right now. Because of,
Okay.
it's an unusual condition where they installed the service to the main distribution panel was not copper, it was aluminum. If it was copper, it would be sized correctly. It's not sized correctly.
Aluminum is a lot cheaper.
So we have some concerns there.
And then how wide are the hallways that people walk through there?
Or 10 feet, I think.
I don't even know if it's not as wide as this
It's on
room.
there, it's on there.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
it's,
I
so
can't-
it's 10 feet and
That's great. Yeah.
but it varies, and that's one of the problems. Massachusetts got hit hard because the other thing that's happening at this fair is more people are visiting.
Yeah.
There's more people, so getting out of the way of,
Is that code as well? Like that 10 feet, is that code?
for them, it was,
Yeah.
for us, it's not. They're following a different code.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because they're a state-owned building.
Yeah.
10 feet is barely the width of this room. Right?
This is
No,
why.
no,
This is like 16. 10's here
10
to the
Yeah.
wall.
to the wall.
Yeah, that's-
Without the seating and all of that, maybe
Yeah.
within the seating.
But what I'll say again with this slide up is that this area is not 10. So it is,
Is what?
this area that I'm pointing to on the screen, that's not 10.
But it's going to.
So that is it's a code issue if you come into an area that's 10 and then
Yes.
suddenly make it less. Yes. So you were onto it.
Questions? Other, that's your last slide, right?
Yeah.
So 1.5 in FY 26, at 1.5 in FY 27.
Oh, Yeah,
Yep.
and then what?
Well,
It
then
did.
they come back. You know,
Right,
back, we told you, when was it, back 22? Remember, calendar year 22, go do a master plan,
Yes.
you said,
around there.
but you're not gonna get money unless you have a master plan. This is part of the master plan, it's a $13 million project, we've already put in it. At least 2 million, if not more, we've been doing deferred maintenance here for a while.
Yes. Okay.
And then finally, we have said, hey, we gotta really do the work that's gonna bring the building up, not do this patchwork. Let's get a master plan in place. And then really, because also the other thing, a group of us took a tour down there a few years ago, it's in summer 22. I don't remember.
It was 22.
But it was really clear that the layout of the booths and then not having enough electrical outlets, it was really limiting what could be brought in as vendors, because the vendors now have more needs than the vendors back even 20 or 30 years ago. And it was designed 100 years ago for vendors back then, and that hasn't really been upgraded since. So
Thank you.
it's investing in a new building, basically. Anything else? Thank you, folks.
Thanks very much.
This was a long presentation, but it was informative for folks.
Was.
And then I have a question, Joe, while you're here.
Oh.
Oh, no, this is,
I'll try and answer.
yeah, this is for testimony you gave us the other day when I wasn't here. On the print and postal.
I'm going back now.
Oh,
It's all the dark.
there you go. And it's 250,000 for the print and postal power supply upgrade. Is that basically bringing in another type of generator?
No, that's a UPS, uninterruptible power source. So it's basically a couple banks of batteries. So that when we do lose power, it's on battery power until the generator kicks on.
Okay,
So if you don't lose, most of the machines that they have, or a lot of them have hard drives and certain ports, that when you just cut the power, it ruins that hard drive. So they're gonna bring somebody in to replace a hard drive.
so you're doing
This will
battery
maintain that. Yeah, it's a small battery system.
for 250?
Yes,
And then they said something, the numbers in
the
the
math was wrong.
math was wrong.
Yes,
But it's-
50 plus the 38.
300.
38 for,
So 308, I think total is what it should be.
yes.
Next time I'm up on some section, I will bring an updated slide.
So you need more than the 250.
No, I need the 250. We have money in the bank already.
Where'd you
There's
get that money?
38,000. She gave it to us years ago when we were doing the renovation of the Secretary of State and the swap of print postal and a few other renovations inside the
We
building.
were doing the archives
Yeah.
that long ago?
Not that far back.
Oh,
There was a swap of space. And at that point in time, we still had some funds left over. We've been trying to chase this issue. And every time someone have a plan in place ready to go, they're buying new machines, and so the newer machines are requiring more and more power. So this is now leapfrogging ahead of that to go, okay, this is gonna be the UPS system for the future.
So you need the 250, you already have 38 or
Yes,
38
it's the balance is correct on the
on the
sheet
sheet?
that I've given you, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And we do need the 250.
So I'm just trying to catch up on what I lost over the last couple of days. Okay. This is what I need to know.
We didn't catch it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll have you back. We're done early. Hallelujah.
Well, not good, because I have a question.
We're not done.
Well, we're not.
Oh, I know. So today's Thursday. What a week. Any questions that people have on anything else? Not this, but anything else? Well, we got a few minutes. You folks have had kind of a weird week. Apologize.
Not as weird as yours.
Yeah,
That is true, Brian.
mine was a little weirder. It was the weekend ended. It was like no weekend. So tomorrow, what we're gonna have after the floor is just an update on the Chittenden Regional, not the juvenile.
Yeah, that's been taken off our agenda.
Yeah, because they're not quite ready for that. And they
Okay.
also wanted the commissioner of DCF here for that. So the commissioner of corrections will be here, or somebody from DOC tomorrow.
Commissioner Dunn should be here.
And what I want is all the background information, because I know things are still kind of in flux. Yeah. For that. So let's call it quits for the day. It's almost 2:30. You can get ready, go on the floor. We're on the floor at 3. Any